Good morning, everyone. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the summit so far. Thank you so much for joining this track. We will be focusing on innovation insights today. And just to introduce myself, my name is Hannah Klaus. I'm currently a PhD student working on AI and low-resource language models at the University of Cambridge. I'm also a Gates and DeepMind scholar and just, trying to make AI more accessible and equitable to everyone in society. But yeah, without further ado, please let's start with the first session of today. We are going to look at a presentation that is about the power of data readiness and AI success. Here to tell us more, please give a very warm welcome to Ramachandra Yermal, the advisor at data platforms at the Department of Government Enablement, UAE. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Hope I'm audible. Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. My name is Ramachandra Yermal. I'm an advisor at the Department of Government Enablement, which is a public sector organization. So this presentation is more about preparing yourself for AI, right? So the foundational aspect of AI is more reliant on how your data looks within your organization. Probably, if you have heard the panel discussion earlier, there was a lot of focus on why we are looking at data. These are some of the examples because there is no AI without trusted data. So one of the classic examples that people always talk about is about a company called Zillow in the US, which is a property company that had to write off around $304 million just because of an incorrect AI model, right? So there are several such examples which are listed here. I'm not going to talk about all of this. So what I'm trying to allude is you need to have some good quality data for any AI model to work. So what does that mean from an organizational perspective, right? So the foundation of AI, to be excellent, you have to have certain pillars that you need to focus on, and we'll talk about 4 different pillars where data is the center of all of that. So if you look at from an AI power source, AI systems are as powerful and effective as the data they rely on, right? So to remove any of the biases that you have with the data, the quality of the data itself, the governance around it, all of those aspects need to be considered when you talk about AI. So from a critical step, what is it that you need to take? I mean, you need to make your data ready from day one, right? So when I say you need to make your data ready from day one, my experience over the last 27 years, you need to start small, right? Start small, work on a use case, show some success criteria, and then start scaling it from that point onwards. So from a data readiness standpoint, I think these are the core pillars that I have looked at pretty much over the last, I would say, 20 plus years, right? It is mostly around data governance, data accessibility, diversity, and data quality. So what do I mean by data governance? There are 2 aspects of governance that we all talk about these days. One is data governance, and then there is AI governance, right? This particular aspect is about data, right? How do you manage data within your organization, right? So you need to be compliant, not just from a regulatory perspective. You need to also ensure that privacy is also maintained. So ensure that governance is taken care of from day one, right? So you need to define what your governance framework is all about. Depending on the size of the organization and the complexity within the organization, there are different frameworks that you can take from a governance perspective, right? It could be a centrally defined governance framework, it could be a decentralized one, or it could be a federated model. Most of the organizations that I've worked with, large to small, medium to large organizations, it's typically the federated model that organizations prefer. The second pillar is mostly around data accessibility. What do I mean by data accessibility, right? Today, data is there everywhere across the organization in various formats, right? There is no standard approach in terms of maintaining your data. At least that's my experience. There are data silos across the organization. With silos come various ways of doing things. A particular team might build a pipeline in a certain way, and then there's another team building it in a different fashion altogether, right? So you need to have certain standards defined within the organization, and that's the responsibility of your data strategy as well, right? The strategy should clearly define how you ingest the data, how you acquire the data, how you process the data, how you enrich the data, what are the standard mechanisms that you apply on top of the data, what are the data quality standards you apply, and then how does the end consumer consume the data, right? So data accessibility becomes a key aspect of it, and then it should be easily retrievable. What I mean by that is data should be accessible. Today you hear a lot of the buzzword around data democratization, right? Ensure that data is accessible to everyone within the organization based on his or her profile in the organization. So today the term is called data sharing. So any organization that want to look at data and AI need to have the capability of sharing the data across the organization. The third pillar, an important one, is data diversity. It should be comprehensive and representative data. Today, organizations have a lot of data, but that's not enough from an AI perspective. So look at data, generate data from multiple sources, whether it is internal to the organization, external to the organization, data from different geographical locations, right? Because that's where the value add is. One other important aspect of data diversity also is today, or probably historically, we have not looked at data from a context perspective. It's all about getting the data, but you're not giving some context to the data. So having a business context to the data really helps in the AI world. Probably in the traditional data warehouse, data lakehouse, and all of that, it may not work that much, but from an AI perspective, having a contextual relevance to the data helps for the models to give you the better output, right? So data diversity is one of the key aspects, and obviously data quality. When I talk about data quality, I think historically we have only looked at certain indicators about doing some basic checks to the data itself. We need to go beyond those basic checks and look at data holistically, right? From a data quality perspective, ensure that you look at data from a completeness perspective, you look at data from an accuracy perspective, you look at data from the core 6 quality dimensions, right? And obviously also ensure that it's not a one-time activity. That is very important because data quality is always about continuous improvement of the data sets that you have. So when you build an AI model, as you all know, over a period of time, the performance of the models also the accuracy of the models also reduce, right? And the core I would say the reason for that is data quality itself, because you add more data, you get more data from external sources, and that's the reason your model is not performing to what you expect. A classic example of that is e-commerce. In e-commerce, the models retrain themselves because based on user behavior, you go to the website, you purchase today X number of items, tomorrow you buy something else, so the model is aware of what you have done from an e-commerce perspective, and then it retrains itself, and then that's how you need to do that. The best approach to all of that is, yes, the initial days you might do all of this manually, but then over a period of time, all of this should be baked into your process itself. So retraining the models, getting the data from various sources, all of this needs to be automated. So these are kind of the 4 pillars that I feel will at least help you in achieving your core objectives for adoption of AI. Now, what are some of the challenges in preparing these data, right? As I talked about, there is inconsistent formats of data, right? Because Department A related to sales might capture data in certain format, finance might capture data in different formats, because the reason for that is every department has their own system, operational systems. Finance probably has ERP systems, sales has their marketing applications, and then HR has their own HR applications, right? Each of these vendors build these systems in different formats or different ways. So ensure that all of these inconsistencies are standardized either in the source systems or when you ingest these data maybe to a unified data lake, right? So today's challenge is inconsistent formats, incomplete data sets, right? It could be based because of missing data itself. What that ideally leads to is pretty much around bias of the model itself, right? The model may not give you the right output that you're expecting. So the accuracy of the model will degrade over a period of time, and then that is where you see false positives coming from the model itself. And then the other is lack of standardization. today organizations are going through a transformation of putting together their data strategy. So when you do a data strategy, ensure that standardization is one of the core pillars of how you want to define data across the organization, how data flows from department A to department B, and then how it's consumed, taking into account the governance aspects as well. And then the last aspect challenge that we face is insufficient infrastructure. Today, luckily, we have platforms. There are a lot of cloud architectures available that helps us to build reliable, scalable data platforms. So I think from that perspective, I think we are at least in a better shape from a challenge perspective. Now, what is the impact of data readiness? So if you have good data, you have improved AI model accuracy, right? The better data that you have, the better context of the data that you can provide, the model can give you better throughput as well. Faster time to insight. So if you have ready to use data and accelerators to generate this data, the model, the time to get those insights are faster. One classic advanced companies or organizations today do is, I think one of the panelists also talked about earlier, is generating data. You need to start thinking along the lines of generating synthetic data, right? That's the easiest way of training your model. There are a lot of companies today that provide tools and technologies to generate this synthetic data. It's not really like fake data, but synthetic data is ensuring that your data integrity is maintained, data consistency is maintained. So it generates data as your day-to-day operational aspect of it, right? So start thinking along how can we generate synthetic data within your organization. Then there is reduced implementation risks. So clean, comprehensive data minimizes errors. It also minimizes your governance risks. It also minimizes your AI implementations, and also it minimizes the issues that you might encounter once you deploy the models to your production environments. And then, obviously, the reason why you want to adopt AI is enhanced decision making. So, higher the quality, the better the decisions that the model can provide you, and also generate actionable insights for you. I think that's very key, because you can provide a model to your business users. Is it giving you the right actionable insights for them? Today, I think everyone looks at data in terms of what actions can I derive from that insights that data engineer or a data scientist provides to the business. So I think these are at least the four key drivers in terms of data readiness. Now, what are some of the strategies for it, right? So start, as I said earlier, start small. So start small, take one or two use cases, try to implement this framework. I mean, I've done this at least for 7 to 8 organizations. Start deriving in terms of how do you define your data cleansing process. Data cleansing can be as small as looking at just the technical aspects of it. So implement comprehensive data cleaning workflows to ensure consistency and accuracy. So the best approach for that is start with something called as data profiling. Because you need to understand how your data looks in the first place, right? So do a current state assessment of probably do 1 or 2 use cases. With the profiling, what it tells you is how accurate is your data. Based on that, don't try to start taking actionable decisions for all of that data. Look at some of the critical data attributes that are very impactful, right? So if you have 100 attributes that you're looking at, maybe out of the 100 attributes might be 15 to 20 are the highly critical ones that have some business impact into your outcome, right? So look at those attributes and see what are the profiling characteristics of those attributes, and start correcting those, right? So I think that's where I would start. Then the next step would be robust data collection. So look at, as I said earlier, look at data from various sources. It could be sources within your organization, it could be sources outside of the organization as well, it could be social media, or it could be data from credit agencies. I've worked with a lot of financial companies, so apart from the transactional data that you gather from your customers, the financial agencies also talk to external agencies like the credit risk and all of that, right? So if your organization has such data that you can gather from external agencies, I would strongly suggest to look at collecting that data to provide a unified view for the models themselves. The third aspect is centralized data repositories. I wouldn't want to emphasize on the point that all use cases within an organization, you need to have a unified data lake or maybe a unified warehouse, right? My experience, wherever I have seen a unified data lake might be very useful, is where you need to derive some 360-degree profile. It could be a customer profile, it could be a vendor profile, it could be an employee profile, it could be your customers, it could be your probably suppliers and all of that. Right? So wherever there is something called as master data, and you want to look at 360-degree profile of that master data, I think a unified data lake probably is a very good solution for it. The other aspect of centralization is you have data in one place for everyone to come and look at. But keep in mind, you don't also want to boil the ocean. So your data lake should at least have data that is relevant to derive the insights for the organization itself. The more data you have in the lake, the more complexity you're adding in terms of governance. So my suggestion is keep your data lakes, unified data lakes, lean as much as possible, because your governance is going to be pretty simplified in that aspect. The last, as I said, data governance frameworks that takes into account privacy, security, and ethical guidelines. Today, historically, when you start building your data strategies, as part of the governance frameworks, you ideally look at what you call as building your governance bodies, right? So with AI, there is AI governance bodies that you need to start thinking about. Who should be the people that should be part of these AI governance bodies, and then start building certain guidelines for these governance frameworks. So what are some of the ROIs? I have 5 more minutes. So you get improved model performance. 30% is what these are some of the statistics that has come from Gartner. You save 50% time from your data scientists, 25% cost reduction in terms of how you build the models themselves. And frankly, today there are a lot of companies that provide you out-of-the-box industry best practice models themselves. So try to look at them rather than building it from scratch, right? I mean, every organization today has out-of-the-box models that can work for various industries. So try to look at those models. And then 40% faster deployment. Today there are a lot of MLOps deployment platforms that you can leverage for this. So what does the future of data and AI look like? Today, if you look at data engineering aspect, gone are the days when you build one pipeline for every use case, right? It has to be a very repetitive process. So it has to be a data factory where you start generating data engineering pipelines. So start leveraging AI for your data preparation needs. Start looking at advanced data integrations, whether it is real-time streaming, whether it is integrations with external sources. Start looking at advanced data integrations with IoT devices as well. Automated data quality assessment. There's no point in 10 people doing quality testing within your organization. This has to be a repeated automated processing itself. And then ethical AI and data usage. Just ensure that you have governance in place. You need to know who are the consumers of the data, who are the is a particular unit within the organization required to look at data, right? So define a governance framework, a AI framework with more structure to it. So define certain governance bodies, whether it could be data governance bodies or committees or AI committees, but put a structure to all of that. So call to action, audit what you have in terms of the current infrastructure. I'm sure every organization today here, people here have a data strategy that aligns with their business strategy. Invest in quality and governance, which is very important, and then embrace continuous improvement, not just from a data quality perspective. AI models need to refine themselves. So define continuous improvement within your AI models as well. So I think adopting all of this, I think you will at least be in a position that you can say you are on the right path for a data-centric organization where data and AI go hand in hand. So empowering your AI future, data-driven decision making, collaborative data excellence, and leading the AI revolution. So these are kind of the key outcomes that you would want to see from an AI future perspective. So when you look at, one last point before I conclude, when you look at platforms or building your data strategy, look at how does this help from a futuristic perspective, right? Now, don't build your data strategy for today. Build your data strategy for 5 to 10 years from now. Not just from a strategy perspective, even from a technology perspective. So a lot of advanced companies today have predictive models to tell what new technology might come in the next 5 years. So you need to start thinking around those lines for taking your path or deep dive into AI within your organization. So I think that's all I have. Thank you. I have probably a minute or two. If any questions, happy to answer.
Hi,
Hi.
this is Azim from UDC Qatar. So I have a question regarding data governance. See, a company who has done their data centralization and they have cleaned their data and their departments are working very smooth. Now is the time for them to build a data strategy. So now the topic comes like most of the companies, the corporate sectors, they don't have experts for each and every area.
Sure.
They don't have data scientists. They don't have AI. They don't have each and every like resource who is expert into all domains.
Exactly.
So now they need to build data strategy and AI strategy. What is required for them in order to choose the right framework
Yeah.
when they are building the strategy? We know that most of the companies who are working, they are coming with the sales pitch and ideas.
Yeah.
So how to cover up those gaps and make the right decisions to move forward? This is a very common question for most of the companies who are working in all over. So how to take it up?
Thank you. Thanks for that question. I think that's a very important one. At least my experience is, I know there are a lot of consulting companies that come and talk about all of these, right? They come and talk about the frameworks, and then once they are gone, you are probably still in the position that you were to begin with. My suggestion is companies like Gartner or the Forrester are companies that you need to look at. And there is a reason for that. Gartner and Forrester and all of these agencies, they don't talk about technology. They actually talk about the principles of how you want to approach all of this, right? So I think that's the first step for every organization to look at is what are my core principles on how I want to take a dive into either data strategy or an AI strategy. So look at such organizations. I'm not just saying referring to Gartner or Forrester. There are other organizations like IDC and all of that, right? That give you these guiding principles to how you should begin your journey into all of these strategies. So look at such organizations and then bring in the external consultancies and all of that to look at that what recommendation Gartner or other organizations have provided, and then start building on top of it. And what my humble request also to a lot of the companies that I've worked with is start building those capabilities in-house as well, because you don't want to lose that once these companies goes out of, from your engagement.
Thank you Thank you so much. That was really great. I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. Over there. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the insights. What I wanted to ask, you talked about synthesizing data,
Correct.
right? How to use AI for creating synthesized data?
So,
What
I
can
mean,
we
not
leverage
AI
basically?
per se. There are a lot of advanced machine learning algorithms that have been built. So the way these machine learning algorithms ideally work is they look at your underlying data model for whichever application that you're trying to build, and then generate the data based on those models that you have, right? So it's, I wouldn't call it AI per se, but these are advanced analytical models, whether using machine learning capabilities, or you can even build it in-house. I mean, you pretty much do it within your Python environment, write a Python code to build it. But the underlying basis for all of that is you need to have a core data model as to how a particular transaction runs across your organization.
Oh.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Hello? Yeah. In case we have that infra already, so what you're suggesting is either we go for machine learning or simple Python program to create the synthesized data.
I would strongly suggest to look at, you need to make a decision whether it's a buy or a build. So my suggestion would be to go for a buy, because these are the organizations that have, see, one of the reasons why I suggest that is from a scalability perspective, they provide you that scalability aspect as well. So if you build just a Python script, that might probably work for one use case, but not for the others, right? But these products have an underlying base meta model that can be extensible for all of your use cases.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much.
Ramachandran. Please give an applause to Ramachandran. Thank you.